I rubbed one out at work while smelling a female co-worker sneakers, and I'm still conscious over it after 2 years. I still feel weird and conscious about this, and I know that what I have done is very crappy. I understand 100% if you will judge me about this, because I judge myself over it too. A girl co-worker asked me if I could put her sneakers into a locker because she wanted to take a swim. We worked as lifeguards. She wore those sneakers every single day that summer because they were quite expensive and she wanted to flex with them. On my way to the locker I noticed how strong they smell and I took a whiff. The smell hit me instantly and for some reason that turned me on. I also saw some dark soul-shaped sweat stains which weirdly made me even hornier. I hid somewhere and began to sniff them while touching myself. I also took a soul pad out of the sneaker and began to lick it. It was already damp with sweat, so my saliva wasn't obvious. It was a weirdly great wank, but I felt conscious as fuck after it because she is a really good friend. I still feel bad about it. I realized what my grandma was saying before she died. I just want to get this off my chest because I can't stop thinking about it. My Japanese grandma died this year. Before she died, she was bedridden and received care at home. I was visiting her soon before she died and she kept talking about how her mom in heaven was going to come get her. She kept saying she was ready to leave and join her mom. This shit was obviously upsetting to me, but I'm so glad she left us at a time when she was ready. When I was visiting her, she had resorted to talking in Japanese at some points because that was her first language. Luckily my family understand most of what she was saying. At one point she said Arigatou Northeast, and I knew what that meant, as she was thanking my family members for coming to see her. Then she said Mata Northeast, and I didn't know what that meant, but I forgot to look it up. Later in this year, I decided I would try to learn Japanese. Well, I learned that Mata Northeast means see you later, and something about my grandma saying this before she died just makes me so sad. I'm glad she believes in that kind of stuff after death, and it's so sweet that she wants to see us again in the afterlife, but something about it is just so upsetting to me. Change the VIN plate from my car to another one, identical model. I was young and in the military. I was racing to work one morning, late as usual, and I hit a bump in the road too fast, lost control of my car and destroyed it. I was into shade, since the DMV in the state was screwing me with taxes and stuff to buy a new car. I just found one in a pasture that was literally gathering dust, swapped the still running engine, popped off the VIN plate, and put my VIN plate on it with my license plates. My insurance was none the wiser, and in retrospect, I should have just made a claim, but I was a teenager and did not know how life really worked. Plus, my parents were useless. I should have asked for some advice, but I already looked stupid, and I did not want to look even more so. I later sold the car, and there were no questions asked since DMV did not inspect the car. It was all dodgy AF, but I felt it was the path to choose at the moment. 30 plus years later, I have little guilt. I just lost all of my best friends because of politics. I've known them for maybe 4 years. They were all I had, and I wanted so badly to keep it that way. What I'm about to tell is absolutely not pushing a political agenda and is ordered in actions that led me here. English is my second language, so go easy on me. I'm open to any criticism and what I could have done better in this situation. I met them in 2016 when I was in the 6'th grade. They were great people and cared for me in ways I'll never forget. Skip ahead to the shit show 2020 where we are all stuck at home. We made a group text chat and shared memes and other stuff. Eventually, a person I'll call C really let me see their true colors. Before I go on, I'm going to say that almost all of us were somehow LGBT, including me. I have nothing against LGBT folks. They began to have extreme ideas I never knew about them. It started with small statements, but led to vile, racist garbage. They talked about how white people are so horrible. They talked about killing all men. They talked about sending CIS folks to death camps. Horrible things. I tried to ignore them, I really did, but what they were saying was just so wrong. Eventually, I called out C for their blatant racism. Then a war of text walls occurred. When my thumbs were too tired to type, they acted like they educated me. This started the shit show. Now, I'll admit I was no saint in this mess. I did a couple of bad things, the worst of which was when I sent porn in the chat. I regret this a lot. It was during online classes someone had Zoom bombed the teacher with, well you know. I was laughing my ass off and sent a video of it. I immediately regretted it and deleted the text, but the damage was done. That dealt a big blow to my relationship with them. I also sent some memes that, well, let's just say, were controversial. However, to be fair to myself, it was before I knew how insane they were. Now for the straw that broke the camel's back. It was when I misgendered one of them. Or dead named? I don't know the term. We were showing off drawings and talking when I accidentally said the wrong pronouns. I swear to God, it was a complete accident. I immediately corrected myself, but it was far too late. It was an explosion of hatred. They kicked me out completely. They also made me with threats, insults, and other mean things. I'm not going to lie, I cried myself to sleep the first few days. I realized I had just lost all of my friends. I wish so badly I could just go back in time and tell myself to just let them spew their hate. I wish so badly I could. But that's not how the world works. Wow, that felt very therapeutic to write, like a weight off my chest. What should I do now? I tipped myself around €350 from one of my previous employers. Way back before I graduated I worked a couple of jobs mostly in retail. One of these jobs catering in trains. In the Netherlands we have two kinds of trains, one for short stops and one for big stops. The company I worked for would cater to the people in the trains by selling coffee, tea, soda and snacks. I worked at this company for around 3 years and I was good at it, even enjoyed it as far as retail goes. But after a year I asked for a raise as I had been daily top seller like 2 out of the 5 days I worked almost every week. They wouldn't give me a raise. One day they announced they would work with coupons. Buy a €2 coffee and get a cookie for free. The cookies were €2. We would get coupons to use when we were in the trains. One of the most wanted trains we had was the airport train, as most caterers would get a lot of tips from people wanting to drop their coins as they couldn't be swapped back for their OWM currency. Armed with cookies and coffee I would go in, but people didn't want to buy the combo. They were literally turning down a free cookie or a free coffee when refusing. I had an amazing day that day. I worked on the airport train and could do the same route 4 times that day, which meant already getting loads of tips. Then it hit me. If I would add coupons to my train wallet I could get even more tips. So what I did was count out how many single items I had sold and add the coupons to my train wallet. After which I would add money to my own personal wallet. We never shared tips. I didn't realize how much I had gotten during the 3 weeks did this until I emptied out my wallet after the 3rd week. I counted it and found out I made about €350. I got scared for my job and decided to stop doing it. I still feel guilty about it. When I was 17, I used a knife in an argument with my brother. He was being verbally abusive. I was emotionally unstable. With what? I do not know. Not that that is an excuse. Anyway, he was being nasty and he was doing it on purpose to wind me up. He will tell you that himself, and it is not because he is scared of me. I was crying and begging him to stop. He would not, so I picked up the knife from the side. I stood with it shaking in my hand and continued to beg him to stop. My mind was telling me how much of an awful person I was. He continued, but I put the knife down and collapsed on the floor crying. He was in the other side of the kitchen at the time. Although our kitchen was not very big. We live in England and lived in a council house at the time. Edit. Can I just say thank you for how incredibly nice everyone is being? I know what I did was wrong, and TBH I scared myself. I do not want to be capable of stabbing someone. Whilst my brother was generally being nasty, the way I handled it was wrong. I thought I would get a lot of hate TBH, and I put it on here to see if I was really as demonic as some people have said, and TBF as someone else said, to let people throw insults at me. My brother is not scared of me, he finds it funny. I do not. I'm ashamed of my behavior, as I should be. He winds people up often. That is just what he likes to do when he was bored. Whilst I did not like my brother growing up, and I do not believe this is a sign of love, I do think he generally loves me because of other things he has done. Anyways, my point was just to say thank you for being understanding. I used to skim customers' change to supplement my minimum wage fast food job back when I was in college. I worked full time at McDonald's around 7 or 8 years ago now. My state doesn't have its own minimum wage, so I was making $7.25 an hour and was having trouble meeting my half of the rent and bills and stuff. When I worked at my hometown's McDonald's I was making a little over $8 an hour, but since there was no way to transfer my job to the city where I moved they started me back at the minimum, which sucked, but I guess at least I was working. Anyway, so I was their go-to guy to run the drive-thru window, and I usually worked 8 or 9 hour shifts where I would stay in that one spot all day except for my 30-minute break. It didn't bother me to not switch positions with anyone else because at the drive-thru window I would make around 15 to 20 bucks extra per day I worked. We had one of those automated coin changer machines connected to the register, so when I input what the customer paid I would only have to count the bills and the coin changer would put the coins in a small cup next to the register. When I gave people their change I would skim a quarter off of every cash payment that had a decent amount of coins. If it was just a couple coins I wouldn't bother. Near the end of my shift I would put the change in the register, if possible, and get the bills out. If it was too much I'd save that in my coffee can piggy bank until it was enough to roll and deposit into my bank account. I did this for around a year and a half and only had one customer in that entire time actually notice that he was a quarter shy. I mean, most people don't check their coin change and just put it in their pocket or in the Ronald McDonald House donation thing. I never got caught and managed to stay on track with my bills until I found a better paying job, but there could have been more ethical ways of getting more money. At the time I couldn't care less, but stealing is wrong, no matter how small, and even though it was spread between hundreds or thousands of customers over that span of time, I managed to skim a pretty large amount of money over that time. TL. Dr. I skimmed a quarter of nearly every cash paying customer at McDonald's drive-thru over the span of about a year and a half to help me pay my part of the bills in college. I can't stay sober. I'm an addict, but hiding it from people. The truth is going to come out soon. I'm an addict. All I do is get high all day, just around the clock, fucked up like I can't do life anymore. I almost got a DUI today, but I didn't. It was a DUI. I was under the influence, ran a red light in broad day and nearly seriously injured someone. I'm okay if control. I need rehab.